This course is designed to help students in first grade meet the Reading Foundation's Phonics and Word Recognition Standard, which calls for students to recognize and read grade-appropriate, irregularly spelled words. In Word Matters, Teaching Phonics and Spelling in the Reading-Writing Classroom, Fountas and Pinnell explain that children need to develop a growing core of words that become part of a reading and writing vocabulary. This course is designed to help students learn up to 30 common irregular sight words over several weeks. Irregular sight words are words that students must learn to read instantly, as they do not follow typical letter-sound patterns. An initial lesson has been created, as well as follow-up activities to help children develop fluency and automaticity for words that do not sound like their spelling suggests. This lesson will provide children with a chance to develop a word bank of irregular sight words they recognize immediately and can read in a snap. Since the words selected do not follow typical sound-letter correspondences, words are learned through memorization and practice. In Word Matters, Fountas and Pinnell write about the importance of having an ever-growing bank of easily recognized words. They write, as readers learn more, having many words that are quickly recognized helps to move the reading along so that problem solving is not necessary on each word. Fluency is supported by a large number of easily recognized words. They also write that when children know how to look at the features of the letters, it becomes easier for them to learn how to recognize a word. 100 most frequently used words in print make up about 50% of our written material. While some of these words follow expected letter-sound correspondence, many do not. An irregular word tends to be abstract with not easily understood definitions. There is limited visual correspondence, so sounding out is unproductive. In the book Research-Based Methods of Reading Instruction, the authors give some guidelines for teaching irregular words. It is necessary to teach irregularly spelled words that a student will encounter regularly. The number of words to teach in each session will vary depending on the student. It is helpful to teach the irregular words prior to reading them. Words that are learned need to be reviewed on a regular basis, and students need opportunities to use the newly taught words. The learning objective for this course is that readers will learn to automatically identify words by sight that do not follow typical letter-sound correspondence. The student objective is that students can recognize and read sight words. The focus standard addressed is Reading Foundations for First Grade 3G. Recognize and read grade-appropriate, irregularly spelled words. Other standards addressed include Reading Foundation 4, Read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension, and Language 2E, use conventional spelling for words with common spelling patterns and for frequently occurring irregular words. This support lesson is designed to take 15 to 20 minutes and will help students to learn up to 5 commonly occurring irregular words at a time. Following this lesson, additional practice and exposure to the words that are being learned, for about 5 to 10 minutes over 3 to 5 days, will be necessary in order to develop automaticity. Words are learned up to 5 at a time, so when students are ready for the next list, the time frame above should be allotted for the new list. It is important to keep in mind that ultimately the amount of time you will need will depend on the needs of the students you are working with. It is important that all students participate in daily phonics and word study instruction that follows a defined sequence and teaches systematic relationships between letters and sounds and consistencies within our spelling system. When this is in place, irregular words can be used as examples of exceptions to the generalizations being explored in word study because the words do not sound like their spelling suggests. Words that do not follow typical spelling patterns are often referred to as pattern breakers, rule breakers, or oddballs. The materials for this lesson include an irregular reading word master list. This master list breaks 30 irregular words up into 6 groups. The list can be used for pre- and post-assessment as well as to track words that students are currently working on. You will want to provide 1 copy of the list that students are working on to each student. Students will also need a way to highlight irregular words on their list with either a highlighting pen or light-colored crayon. It is helpful to have a small whiteboard for teacher use and student use during follow-up activities. A pocket chart can be used to display irregular reading words. Finally, words that are being studied should be pre-written on note cards so that students have a model to study. The lesson in this model is based on the gradual release model as described in detail in the book Better Learning Through Structured Teaching by Douglas Fisher and Nancy Frey. In the teacher is model phase, the lesson's purpose and goals are clearly established, and the teacher models his or her own thinking through direct explanations, modeling, and thinking aloud as the students observe and listen. In the guided instruction phase, students begin to take on more of the learning responsibility through carefully chosen activities while the teacher observes and scaffolds as needed with questions, prompts, and cues. In the collaborative learning phase, students use language skills to practice and apply their learning while interacting with their peers. In the independent learning phase, students work independently to practice applying skills and information and solidify understanding. The authors write that it is through this process of gradually assuming more and more responsibility for their learning that students become competent, independent learners. It will take most students multiple encounters with a word in a variety of settings until it truly becomes a word known by sight. Because of this, several brief follow-up activities are suggested to provide additional practice and exposure after the lesson to the irregular words students are learning. These activities can be completed in a small strategy or guided reading group. It is also important to keep in mind that there are 6 lists that contain 5 words, and this timeline, for most students you are working with, will need to be repeated for each list. Fisher and Frey discuss how teachers need to recognize that a learner who understands the purpose of a new skill and gets an opportunity to see it executed by an expert is going to grasp the details more thoroughly. In the focused instruction part of this lesson, this is the teacher's opportunity to set a clear purpose and model how to notice, look at, and learn irregular reading words. Students are told and shown examples of words that they need to read that do not follow some of the letter sound patterns they have studied. The purpose of learning words is so that they can read those irregular words in a snap when they come across them in their books. Starting with the first word you would like students to learn, show them the note card with the word written out, read the word, use it in a sentence to give students context, and have them read the word back to you. Think aloud how the word cannot be sounded out with letter patterns, so it needs to be memorized and read in a snap. Model how you look at the word and notice features. For example, with the word was, have the students listen. Tell them that when you say the word was, it almost sounded like there was a Z at the end, but look, it is an S. Model writing the word on the whiteboard. Once all 5 words are in a pocket chart, or laid out on the table in front of the students so that they can see all of the words, give students time to think about and analyze the words by noticing features and characteristics such as unique spelling patterns and sound-letter relationships. As a group, decide if certain words can be grouped together based on a connection they noticed or if they should remain separate. It is important to remember that student responses and the thinking they share will direct the conversation you have with students and the prompts, cues, and questions you as a teacher will use to guide student thinking. Fisher and Frey explain that in guided instruction, the teacher begins to follow the lead of the learner who is challenged to apply the skill or strategy presented in a new situation. Knowing when to offer a steadying hand and when to withdraw is truly the art and science of teaching. For the collaborative learning phase, students are expected to apply the skills and knowledge they have been taught and to turn to one another for support and enrichment. They will interact with one another, and learning will move forward as students use a number of soft skills, communication, leadership, and negotiation, that take on increased importance. Give students an individual copy of the reading word list with the fluency sentence. Allow students a few minutes to try and read the words and sentences on their own. Using the first word on the list, model how to read the word and then read the fluency sentence. Then highlight the word in the sentence. Have students work with a partner to read the irregular word, read the sentence, and then find and highlight the word in the sentence. Fisher and Frey describe the independent learning phase as merely the fullest expression of the skills and habits of mind used throughout the entire gradual release of responsibility instructional framework. In this part of the lesson, you will ask each student to read the words and sentences independently. Provide corrective feedback as necessary. For students that are having difficulty, provide additional guided instruction and see the resource section for more suggestions. As a way to track progress, when a student shows they are able to read the words by sight, put a small check by the word. When they know all the words on the list by sight, check the bottom box in the left-hand corner. After you have finished working with students, link the work that they have just done with work that they will now do independently. Remind students that there are many words that cannot be sounded out, and those words need to be learned so that they can be read in a snap. Let them know that practicing the words on the list will help them learn lots of words that they can read quickly. Independent reading time is a crucial component in learning to read decodable and non-decodable words by sight. Reading and rereading text at a student's independent level provides repeated exposure to words and context. It is suggested to designate a place for students to keep their list handy for extra practice throughout the day, such as in their reading box or book bag. Students will need to engage in follow-up practice following the lesson. One extension activity is whiteboard writing. The procedure is as follows. Show students one word at a time. Talk about features and letters in the word, and then have students write the word from memory. If necessary, provide scaffolds, such as creating lines for the number of letters, or giving students hints by telling them where a couple of the letters go. To make it game-like, once students write the word, tell them to write it again even faster. Go through each of the words on the list as time allows. When offering students an opportunity to practice writing words they are learning, remember to provide scaffolds before a student writes the word incorrectly. Also, encourage the children not to copy, but to develop visual strategies that help them write the word from memory. Guess the word is an additional extension activity. The teacher makes a line for each letter on a small whiteboard. The teacher starts to randomly add one letter at a time, and students try to guess the word. One option is to have students use a whiteboard also. When the teacher makes a line for each letter, the student does too. When a student guesses the word, he or she fills in the rest of the letters and then writes it quickly on the whiteboard. One more extension activity involves using cut-ups, or the letters of the word, to cut up and practice assembling the words. Give students one word at a time. When they are done working with that word, have them put the letters in the envelope. Provide an envelope to keep cut-out letters in. Ahead of time, use a cutting board to cut out words so that all students have to do for the word they are given is make a quick cut between letters. Once students have cut the lines between the letters, they can assemble the letters into the word. Playfully have students mix up their letters and spell the word a couple times. For additional information on irregular reading words, please see the following resources. Research-Based Methods of Reading Instruction, Grades K-3 by Sharon Vaughn and Sylvia Lennon Thompson. Word Matters, Teaching Phonics and Spelling in the Reading-Writing Classroom by Gay Sue Pinnell and Irene C. Fountas. And for additional information on the framework for the gradual release of responsibility model, please see Better Learning Through Structured Teaching by Douglas Fisher and Nancy Frey.